All right, we're going to get this thing started here in just a matter of seconds. I appreciate everyone's hanging out with us today. We've got a lot going on in the world of Alabama weather. You see the graphic there on the side of your screen. Some of that has changed around a little bit. We'll dive into what's changed, what is new, what is next, what is now. We'll get into all of the gory details coming up in just a moment. Hello, I am your pal, Josh Johnson. It is nice to be with you on a Monday morning, working the morning shift. This is not due to severe weather, by the way. This is a scheduling, just sort of a scheduling quirk, for lack of a better term. Tyler has returned to his home to deal with some family stuff, and we wish him and his family the best. We miss Tyler. So we've got a situation here where we've got some severe weather coming into the state tonight. This is our first severe weather episode in a while. So there's a lot to sort of unpack and some reminders to go over with as we sort of get into all of this. So just watch and let me walk you through all of it. As always, if you have questions, fire those in here. If you could also share this Facebook Live, this video discussion, we'll be able to reach more people and help more people with your help. So if you can share this, comment with where you're watching, that'll make it show up in more news feeds, and we'll be able to give people some more potentially healthy information. So what's about to happen? Let me show you. This is the latest run of the high-res rapid refresh model. So your time is there in the left, and a hint, if you're watching this on your phone, turn your phone horizontally and you'll be able to see this better. But I'll narrate it through if that's not an option for you. So this is noon today. Temperatures are in the upper 60s at this point. There's scattered showers along the Mississippi state line. That's really about it. Today's a calm day. There's some scattered showers, mainly west of I-65 through mid-afternoon. Everything else does all right. Yeah, scattered sprinkles and showers through sunset. Everything's fine. Now, while things are good here, you'll note back to the west in Mississippi, we've got all sorts of problems. This is at 7 o'clock tonight, and you've got numerous sort of clusters of HP supercells firing back here west of Jackson out near Vicksburg. Another one there in central Louisiana close to Alexandria. Then yet more of up into parts of the Mississippi Delta. The most prime area for tornado development in this entire setup is right out here. So Jackson, Greenwood, Greenville, back towards Monroe, Louisiana, Alexandria, Natchez, right out here, lower Mississippi Valley. Okay, so forward in time we'll go. Now by 9 to 10 o'clock, some of these intense cells begin to pop ahead of the line in far west Alabama. So this is valid at 10 o'clock tonight. You've got active thunderstorms into Hale, Perry, Marengo, Clark counties as well. Then this entire mess sort of translates east through the night. This is at midnight. Line back to the west, clusters of storms out along the warm front ahead of it. So a lot of this out here would mainly be damaging wind threat over us at this point, with the tornado threat likely back here along the actual line itself, which at midnight should be nearing the Alabama-Mississippi border. So by 3 in the morning, cells ahead of the line, cells along the line, and both are problematic. We'll just do a sampling. This is the storm environment near Montgomery at that point in time. What I want you to draw your eyes to here, right in the middle of the screen, if you can see the mouse, see how those winds are turning with height. At the surface, they're blowing out of the southeast. Then you get up to 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 feet above the ground at southwest, and you keep going up, it goes more to west-southwest. That is a very favorable shear profile for rotation. There's not, however, a ton of what's called instability in the atmosphere. Lapse rates, the amount of cooling as you rise in the atmosphere, pretty limited in that. Now you head back to the west back here along the line itself. You have a little more juice to work with. Lapse rate's a little better. When we say lapse rates, if you look at the green and the red lines here, that's the dew point and temperature respectively. The more those tilt to the left in the lowest levels down here at the bottom, that's really more favorable for severe thunderstorms. You start to see a little more of that Your shear profile still adequate to produce rotation. So this is again at 3 in the morning, a bumpy ride ongoing with scattered storms running from Montgomery to Andalusia, then a line of potentially more dangerous storms from Tuscaloosa back down towards the Mississippi Gulf Coast. So here is 6 a.m. Yeah, so 3 to 6 is really the core threat. Marengo, Perry, Dallas, Chilton, Wilcox, Autauga, Lowndes, Monroe. 3 to 6 a.m., really that window in there. And again, this would be an environment sort of characterized by not a ton of, it's not 75 degrees in this. There's not a ton of warm, soupy environment to work with here. This is really a lot more about the amount of wind shear, the amount of spin that we're seeing in the atmosphere. We have a lot of that. So this is, again, one of those sort of borderline threats due to that. So there's 7 a.m. You've got it kind of close to Montgomery now. And usually, let's point this out too, usually these things run faster than scheduled. We've accounted for that in our timeline, but usually they run faster than scheduled. So here's the environment. Pardon me. This is close to Montgomery, valid early tomorrow morning. You've got a lot of wind shear here. This is a dangerous shear profile. The amount of instability, notice in the bottom of the atmosphere there, you don't see a lot of leftward lean to that green and red line. And I've made it bigger so you can see it. Right down here is what I'm talking about. The green and the red line right down here. See how those are essentially pointing straight up and down? You don't have, they're not leaning over to the left very much in that lowest kilometer of environment. So when we say not enough instability, that's what we mean. Not enough low-level instability, and the amount of cooling as the air goes up isn't very much. So that's really the saving grace in this. If you had a big soupy environment, this would be a lot different. Still, though, there's enough lift and enough shear to where you have to be concerned about some isolated supercellular tornadoes in this. Here's 8, 9, 10. Now, by this time, the threat really begins to wane. So what's happening by now is the area of low pressure responsible for this whole mess is now moving up through parts of the Ohio Valley. And the more displaced it gets from us, the less shear you have to work with. So here's 10 a.m., and you still have some shear. You don't have as much as you did before. So I'll show you that. There's still some turning of wind with height, but the magnitude of it is much less now. The wind speeds aloft have dropped. So that's 10 in the morning. There's 11, there's 12, there's 1. Now, the one thing we've got to watch for here tomorrow around that 10, 11, 12 time frame, down here in southeast Alabama, you start to warm the environment up a bit. So look at this. Let me show you. So remember earlier we talked about there wasn't a lot of leftward lean in at the bottom of this. See, this is what we mean. There is a pretty significant amount of tilt to the left with the green and the red lines here. This is a three-dimensional kind of rendering of what the atmosphere is going to look like. What this is telling me is the air is getting quickly cooler with height. That means that air that is forced to rise tends to continue rising. So that's a sounding there that you've got a little more what's called instability. Now, the one thing I would point out to you over here, though, the wind barbs, you don't have as much wind shear. Remember I showed you earlier the surface wind down here, that barb was out of the southeast. On this graphic, it's more out of the south. So that's really the recipe here. And what's going to happen is as the amount of instability creeps up as the sun rises tomorrow, the amount of wind shear begins to go down. But all of that being said, there's enough of an overlap here to where I'm afraid we're going to have a window where we potentially deal with isolated tornadoes, damaging wind gusts, especially from Montgomery southward. So what does all of this sort of mean in terms of the forecast? Well, let me show you this. This is from the Storm Prediction Center. This is their outlook here. And you'll notice they've got a sliver of southwest Alabama and a level 2 risk. The rest of the south and central Alabama is in a level 1 risk. So is this an overwhelming risk of tornadoes? No, it's not. Is it a risk, though? Yes, it is. So what are we talking about with that? The scale goes from 1 to 5, 5 being the highest risk, and this is on the other end of that. Still, though, it is a high enough risk level to where you need to make some fairly simple preparations today. What does that entail? Well, check the batteries in your NOAA weather radio and be certain that your First Alert weather app is functioning correctly. And a note about the app, just so we're all on the same page here. 99% of, and this is true for all apps, quite frankly, 99% of all apps in general, if you're having trouble with it, delete the app and reinstall it. That will solve a huge majority of the problems that you have. So we need you to get your app ready for any severe weather threat that materializes. How do you do that? Well, open up the weather app. You see it here. And a couple of things. We want to make sure that this location over here is set to follow me. See it there in the upper left? I've got Montgomery in there a couple of times, but you want to set it to that top one. That allows it to follow your location, and you can figure out very quickly. It can figure out where you are and send you alerts that are custom to your location. The other thing we've got to point out here is this little button, and I'm going to remove our partner logos from the screen here momentarily just so we can show you this. So see this right here? Down at the bottom right of the screen, it says Future. You've got to look very carefully. It's way down there in the bottom. I'm in the radar tab. All this is showing you is model data. This is not showing you actual radar. This is showing you where a computer thinks it's raining, not where it's actually raining. Tap that, though, and it'll switch to past. Now, past is actual radar data. Or you can tap it a third time and get to past plus future. What this will do is show you, if you scrub left, it'll show you where it has actually rained and is raining. If you scrub right, it will show you future data, which is where a computer thinks it's going to be raining. Those are very important differences. So if you are looking to see radar, make sure it is in either past or past plus future mode. If you're looking to see where it is going to rain next, you can use past plus future or just future. And I get it, guys. That is as clear as mud. It's very confusing. I wish they would disable that feature entirely or make it easier to differentiate between the two. We get hundreds of complaints a year saying the radar on the app is broken, when in actuality what's happening is someone's looking at future mode and not past mode, because future mode shows you where a computer thinks it's raining. Past mode shows you where it is actually raining. So again, those are sort of some of the things to think about ahead of severe weather today, because today is going to be a very calm day across the state. So back to those risk levels, there you see them. The tornado risk and the wind risk are sort of the headliners here, but even those, again, on the fairly low end of the spectrum. Let's talk just a little text forecast, walk you through this. The timing on this, 10 o'clock tonight through noon tomorrow. These tend to move faster than expected. We've accounted for that in our timeline there. The main threats would be isolated pockets of strong damaging wind gust and isolated tornadoes. And those reminders, again, check the batteries and the reception in your NOAA weather radio. Check your First Alert weather app to make sure the location is set to follow me, and make sure your radar is in past mode if you want to see where it is raining right now and in the past. Future mode will show you where a computer thinks it's going to rain next. Again, those are different things. All right, I'm going to wind this thing down. We will do more Facebook Lives. We'll also do an app live update on your connected TV. How many of you have Roku, Apple TV? If you have the WSFA app on there, we're going to go live on that later today. Watch for updates. Watch my Facebook page. I'll post when and where that's going to happen. Probably looking at around 12:45 this afternoon. We'll get new information in around then. And, of course, you can watch my forecast on TV on WSFA on Alabama Live at 11 and then on the news at noon at 12 o'clock. So you got lots of ways to stay informed here. All right, everyone. Hope you're all having a wonderful morning. We'll get through this together. Look, as these things go, you've dealt with worse than this in the last year. This is not a massive risk, but it's a risk, and it's our first one in a while, so we want to make sure you are taking it seriously and are fully prepared to go. So we'll coach you through all of it. I promise we'll be right there holding your hand, walking you through it. Everyone have a wonderful day. Take care, and I will see you later today on WSFA on the First Alert Weather app.